Good evening and welcome to another video by awakentheworld.ca. My name is Garen, and tonight we're going to be talking about possessions. I've entitled the blog post on awakentheworld.ca, Possessions to Have, to Hold. Now, straight up in a nutshell, the reason we become attached to possessions is because ego has no identity on its own. And in order to understand this, you have to really understand what ego is. So we're just going to segue into ego just for a minute here and clear up one or two things. You know, my wife read a question off one of the posts this evening. And the post was, in the moment you become aware that you're aware, you are no longer aware. And someone was a little confused by that. So, and this will actually help to illustrate ego. The moment the thought process starts back up again, you're no longer 100% present. You've gone off out of the present moment at that time. In the present moment, there is nothing but the pregnant silence of creation. Everything exists in that present moment, in that silence. That goes back to the beauty of that whole I am as standing complete and whole by itself. And as a matter of fact, in the minute you add something else to that I am, you collapse a universe of possibilities down to one point, whatever your statement is. So if your statement is I am sad, well, out of all the possibilities of what you could be, sadness becomes your state of being. This is the case with ego. Ego doesn't have an identity on its own. Okay, ego is an energetic collection of all your experiences, everything that the higher self has viewed through the vessel, this body, this temple. And that data drive, that computer bank of all the experiences, all the data that's been garnered from being here in this physical illusion, returns with you. As I said in the just recent video on one of my two near-death experiences, that memory bank travels with you. That's what is reintegrated, and you'll hold on to the vestigial qualities of that memory bank when you first cross into the other side as well. So let's get back to possessions. Ego attaches itself to possessions because it has no identity on its own. So what it does is it takes part of its identity from its possessions. And these possessions don't have to be objects. They can be states of being. They can be concepts like I am a doctor. Well, your thinking of yourself as a doctor is a possession that you have. Now, of course, doctor is not what you are. Doctor is a role you play. We do this with our possessions, and we don't understand that our possessions actually end up possessing us. The consistent and continual seeking for possessions, for objects, for things, is to try to complete something which does not feel complete, and that is your false sense of self. You see, way back in the subconscious caves of your mind, somewhere tucked away there, way in the back corner, there's this dim memory of wholeness, of oneness. And that dim memory occurred right at the crossover when your ego was first born. And you begin to develop a sense of I as if you were somehow separate from everyone and everything around you, which of course is false. So you buy into this I to the point where you begin to feel separate and alone. No one else can hear that voice in your head. And what happens? We begin to go outside of ourselves looking for something to complete us. So in my blog example, I use a new shiny car, and you know the false joy of a new car never seems to last as long as the car payments do. Has anyone else noticed that? So, you know, that possession which we think is somehow going to make us complete, of course, doesn't. And worse than that, that which we thought was going to bring us happiness and fulfillment now ends up causing us pain. You see, a possession costs much more than the dollars and cents that you may have had to spend to get it. There's a cost in your time. There's a cost in your energy to maintain it and look after it. There's a cost in the added thoughts and worry that it adds on top of you. And then God forbid that that shiny new car that you're so proud of gets dented in a parking lot. Now the pain becomes very real. And this is what it's like with possessions. Now, this doesn't mean that it's not okay to have things. That's perfectly fine. As you can see in the video here, including our green friend there, we have quite a few nice things. The difference is I could hand any of them to anyone at the drop of a hat and know and not care. Because there's nothing of me that can ever be added by something external to myself. Nor is there anything that can ever be taken away. And you see, this is the problem with ego, and this is why ego holds on to possessions so hard. Mine, mine. You'll hear that. That's mine. First of all, it's truly impossible to own anything. I mean, at very best, you have a short-term lease, the length of your life. That's at the very best. Most things will decay and be gone long before then. And now here's the interesting thing. It doesn't matter whether it's a $100,000 sports car or a $2 used teddy bear. To the ego that sees the possession being taken away from it, of it losing its possession, that pain is the same. It's the pain of something you've identified with as part of you being torn away from you. And it's a false pain. But to the ego, that pain is very real. And in our dysfunction, and this is a type of lunacy that so many in our society engage in, we go out for the next object or thing that's going to bring us satisfaction. And this doesn't matter whether it's women, men, sex, cars, money, vacations, the list is endless. Anything that you've attached yourself to, anything that you've incorporated into your sense of who you are, is going to do you harm one day. Nothing outside of you will ever complete that feeling of separation that ego feels. The only thing that you can do is move past it. Is come to the awakening realization one day that you're far more than your false sense of self. And this happens primarily through grace. And grace is an interesting word, and we're going to talk about that word a little more one day. But in essence, one of the reasons why many of the great spiritual teachings, including Christ in the Bible, talk about, as a matter of fact, let's just quote from there. It is far easier for a camel to walk through the eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to get into heaven. Now, that had nothing to do with the money. It had to do with the possessions and the fact that those possessions possess you. They possess that false sense of you and lock that into place. And as long as you're living based on your possessions, looking outside of yourself, you're never looking inside of yourself, and you'll miss the kingdom. You'll miss your higher self. And you know what? If you do in this life, that's okay. You're going to have many more chances. I could tell you quite honestly, I'm going to be doing a video on reincarnation and my experiences with reincarnation. I currently have pretty strong memories of around 3,284 years of past history. And some of it's been pretty interesting, I'll tell you that much. We go to war over possessions. We fight and murder each other over possessions. We treat women like possessions if you're a man, okay? And women often treat their children like possessions. The reason this all happens is because those things are reinforcing a false sense of self. And there's nothing that false sense of self wants more than to hold on to it. And this is the state of being that most of us live in. Uh, you know, the very first time I went to a third world country, uh, I went to a place where there were no floors. It was all dirt. Everything was built out of cement or clay, and thatched roofs made of palm and other recyclable leaves that could be replaced every couple of years when necessary. No windows. And I have to tell you, you've never seen such happiness in a people, possessing so little, yet having so much. Now, we know this, okay? We know this at our deeper selves all the time because we see the evidence. Whenever something ego-limiting happens in our lives, anything that diminishes ego, whether it's a death of someone close to us or a serious accident or a serious illness, we right away we understand that all the things mean nothing. But we lose that when we're feeling okay. When there's nothing wrong in our world, we're quite happy to hold on to the possessions, get angry when other people wreck our possessions or abuse them, and go out seeking more. And we know better because every time the bullet hits the bone, we understand that that which is truly valuable cannot be bought. True happiness does not come from a thing. True happiness, joy, is a state of being that wells up from inside of you. And one of the best ways to get there is to start dropping all the things you don't need in your life. You know, I have a lot of tools. I've done all our renovations in this place, and I really enjoy working with wood. And those tools are possessions, but I class them as tools. And the reason I do is I don't have them because I have a sense that they're going to complete me in any way. I buy them because they're necessary to complete the tasks I have to do. But you can come take that tool if you need to. I'm not attached to it. As a matter of fact, every year on my birthday, up until the time I met my wife, I used to have a really interesting habit, and that is I would take the most valuable non-tool item that I had and give it to someone on my birthday. One year it was a copy of the Bhagavad Gita, and we're going to talk about the Bhagavad Gita in another discussion, and I'm going to read somewhat of my favorite English translation. But I gave that book away because that book was my dearest possession at the time. And let me tell you, I felt a little sense of loss when I handed it over. And right after that, I felt a greater sense, a greater lightness to my being as I gave away something that I had formed an attachment over. And I did. I felt lighter. And you will too. So we're going to wrap this up, keep this one short for today. The death video went a little longer. This is it in a nutshell. Be aware that the possessions you have don't end up possessing you. Take a look at the expense, the time, the effort, and start asking yourself if they're really doing what you thought they would do for you. And if the answer is no, let go of them. Now, letting go doesn't always mean you have to get rid of, although a lot of times that's the most helpful, is to just get it away. But what it does mean is you view those objects without any sense of yourself attached to them. And you'll know you're there when someone walking in the door says, "Can I have that TV?" And you say, "If you want that TV, take the TV." Obviously, I'm not talking about someone breaking into your home and trying to harm you and the like, but you get the point, okay? You have to separate yourself from those objects that you thought were going to somehow complete you, because they never will. Here's the secret. It's only your false sense of self that thinks it's incomplete. What you are is a powerful, whole, magnificent spiritual being having a human experience. And if you think the reason why this planet is here, the reason why this solar system is here, and the sun is sitting where it's sitting, and the moon is sitting where it's sitting, and everything on this world has been set up just perfectly for life to exist, if you think all of that was so you could go out and buy yourself something from the store, you've not only missed the boat, you're missing out on life itself. This is Garen. It's been a wonderful time. I look forward to your questions, and thank you so much for your comments to date. Really, if there's anything that you would like some more information on or would like us to discuss on video, please let us know. We'll be happy to do so. Have a wonderful night.